Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty and today's episode is the forgery on the fourth project that is hosted by the Counterfeit Kit Challenge group. As part of the design team, here is the kit that we're working with this month, and this particular part of the kit is the one that I would like to forge. I love numbers for matching up photos and journaling. I'm going to use this old stamp set that has solid colors with reverse numbers, but you could totally do this with regular number stamps or stickers. I am picking colors of ink that match up with the papers that are in my kit this month, and if you haven't seen my kit build, I will leave you a link for that down in the show notes. And I am going to do all the numbers in here, even though I very rarely go past 5 or 6 photos that need to match up with journaling. There's also a couple of icons in this set that I'm going to use, and I'm going to double these up. So I'm going to make 2 copies of each color so that I have 1 copy to put on my photos and 1 copy to put up with my journaling so that they match up. And I am going to cut the pattern paper down to, I think it's about 4 by 4 so that it fits with how I've lined up my stamps on a stamp positioning tool. And because I want to get nice, crisp, clear images, I am going to use my stamp positioning tool as well as stamp them multiple times so that I get a nice dark inked impression. And you have to be careful when you have fine images to line up your paper in the corner of your stamp positioning tool so that it's in exactly the same spot each time you stamp, so that when you overstamp with the second coat, you get those images to be nice and crisp and they don't kind of blur themselves. And so I got a pile of this stamping done in my 4 colors, and the next step to this is to make them look like chipboard because that's what is in the original kit. So I'm going to use a circle punch, and it just so happens that my stamped images are 3/4 of an inch, and that is perfect for this 3/4 of an inch circle punch. And then I'm using some paper that went wrong, and I'm punching out a bunch of circles that will be my layers. And what's nice about this is if I add glue to all of these at once, I can use my top layer to kind of touch to each of the bottom layers that I want, and the sticky glue will help grab them, and then I can just slide them between my fingers to line everything up before that glue has time to set. And it's super easy to do these in bulk. Now I'm only doing a few of my favorite colors with the first couple of numbers and a couple of the icons because I'm pretty sure I will use those up right away. But I will keep the rest of these pieces of paper in my kit in case I want more later. Then I can go ahead and build them later. I don't feel the need to build them all right now. So as you can see, I got the yellow and the blue, and here hopefully you can see the thickness of what those look like once they are all put together. And then I'm going to move on to another forgery. So another part of this kit were these word or phrase stickers, and I love that idea. And I actually bought this Concord and Ninth stamp and die set specifically for doing this kind of thing. And I bought this previous to even knowing what this kit was. So the timing on this worked out perfectly for me. Now this stamp is one solid piece. These are not individual words. And the die set is made so that you stamp that whole thing and then you die cut out all of the word pieces at once. So I took regular 8.5 by 11 cardstock, cut it in half to 5.5 by 8.5, there we go. And I'm going to stamp solidly on this paper. Now working with these solid stamps, including those number stamps before, can be challenging. So you need to really prep your stamp very well. I do this in a couple of different ways. I will use an eraser to erase across the entire stamp. That does leave behind some little those eraser bits that are left behind. And so you have to clean your stamp really well after that. And I will tell you, this is a challenge. Even after going through that process, and here you can see me stamping, I still had some areas of my stamp that weren't doing well. So I just look at the places that didn't transfer the ink, because that ink will still be on your stamp. You can go back to those spots, use your eraser to re-erase those sections, re-clean your stamp, and give it a try again. And actually, looking at where my stamp failed multiple times, I should have checked my stamp platform to see if there was any thing stuck underneath these layers of the stamp platform that may have been interfering with a clean transfer of ink. And your ink does matter too, because I had more success with some inks than other inks. So this green here was a Gina K dye-based ink. Oh, and here's a tip that I'm getting to before we talk about that. If you stamp if you ink your stamp with a clear sticky ink like an embossing ink, and then ink it up with your colored ink, that can help with the ink transfer. I just want to pause here for a second and say, when you ink up your now sticky stamp with your dye-based ink pad, you will transfer some of that sticky ink to your ink pad, but I've never had any problems with that ruining my ink pads in any way. But if it's worrying you, you can just stamp off your ink pad a few times on scratch paper, and that really should solve it. Sometimes you'll get a good transfer the first time around, but still, my stamp, it needs to be well seasoned, which means you just clean it and use it and clean it and use it until it's got, I know some of the manufacturing oils are part of what you're trying to remove through this process of cleaning and stamping. And so that can be an issue with these stamps. So now this is oxide ink, which is a combination of pigment particles as well as dye, and the pigment particles in this are much thicker and creamier, so that they do a better job of transferring and sitting on the surface of this stamp pad. So you can see this first stamping had a much better transfer than the dye-based ink. So I am still going to do 2 layers even with this oxide ink so that I can get the impression that I'm wanting. And here you can see with that yellow, the words on the top right hand side still had some transferring problem. And I think that might have been due to my stamp platform having some ick underneath there. It's probably just like a little piece of paper that got stuck underneath some of these layers. So do check your platforms and do check your stamps to make sure there's nothing left over on the surface of your stamp that could be interfering with ink transfer. And so once I've got all of my colors well transferred and they make me happy, I'm just going to run all of these through my die cut machine, and you can see they just pop out nicely. And now I have this pile of confetti words, and here's the last of the colors. And I will use all of these words to add some wonderful little last minute touches of embellishments to my layers as individual words, but also as little phrases. And I can mix and match the colors as I see fit. If you've ever had challenges with solid image stamps, I hope you got some tips and tricks along the way. And I'm going to keep experimenting because even I didn't get things perfect, and I've been stamping for years. And I will be back with a layout process video for you using my kit and these homemade embellishments very soon. So I hope you'll subscribe and join me next time.